Hi, folks. Welcome back to another bonus episode of Science Fiction Book Club. My name's Abu, joined as always by Obssa.
That's right.
And we're here to talk about Murderbot, as we have been doing for the past few weeks. Today, Murderbot episode 6. All right, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Here's a very, very, very brief recap of what happens in episode 6. Basically, we have two plot lines happening in this episode. We have Mensa and Murderbot, who are crashed in the hopper after the explosion in episode 5.
Right.
And the hopper is damaged. They're trying to fix the hopper and get back to the hub.
Yep.
At the hub, Labibi takes everyone hostage. Turns
Betrayal.
out, betrayal.
Yeah.
This was pretty heavily telegraphed, I would say.
Who could have thought?
Particularly in the last
Who could
episode.
have seen it?
Last week, I was like, oh, Labibi's going to betray them. Labibi does betray them.
Yeah.
Takes everybody hostage. Demands to have all, log into your system. Give me all your data.
All right.
We're the ones that actually took out Deltfall. We're a secret other crew.
Yeah.
And we're here to kill
I want
you
my millions
also.
of credits.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yada, yada, yada. So that happens at the base camp. And luckily, just in time, Mensa and Murderbot are able to fix the hopper.
All right.
They get back to base camp and Murderbot actually is the one who kills Labibi.
That's right.
Shoots Labibi's head off in a very gruesome moment. The crew's actually quite shocked by this because
Yeah.
I think having a sec unit in theory and watching a sec unit do its job in reality
Right.
is very different.
Yeah.
There's kind of a gap between
Totally.
theoretics versus actual bloodshed.
And they're clearly all pacifists. And
They're pacifists. They've
I've never seen
never
blood, probably. Yeah. Never stepped on a blade of grass,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So honestly, they're quite shell-shocked.
Yes.
And even Murderbot is like, I'm not sure what they were expecting. This is the whole reason I'm here.
Right. I just saved all of their asses.
No one's cheering. No one's clapping. To be fair, kind of a traumatic moment.
Totally.
Garathan has been shot in the knee.
Yeah.
They all thought they were going to die.
Pinley is laughing, clearly.
Yeah,
in
like a
a state of
trauma
shock.
laugh.
Yeah.
State of shock laugh, which I enjoyed.
It was good. Yeah.
I respected, like, okay, yeah, we're getting some realistic
Totally.
reactions to like a
Yes.
life and death situation.
Yes.
So, I thought that was well handled.
Yeah.
A fun episode. What did you think of episode 6?
Honestly, it took a few episodes for this show to really pick up, but this one I think was the best episode so far. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there being also kind of two plot lines that we were following worked in its favor because there's otherwise generally in the show not a lot always happening. And in this episode, I think a lot more was happening, and we got to kind of bounce between a pretty intense kind of standoff on the one hand and at the hopper. Honestly, a couple of things that were pretty interesting.
Yes,
You got to see
I have
Dr.
a lot to
Mensa
say.
again having another really intense panic attack or anxiety attack, and Murderbot comforting Dr. Mensa. And it was interesting because Murderbot had commented in, I think, episode 3 when they were running away from the other sec unit, that for once it was the human that was protecting it.
Yes.
And it was interesting to see a little bit of mirroring here with Murderbot playing the role of this kind of empathetic, warm, considerate figure for Mensa, and it clearly it worked. Mensa was able to calm down enough to perform open spine surgery on Murderbot, which was incredible, especially as it's passing, Dr. Mensa tools.
Scalpel,
clamp, which I really enjoyed. No, I thought this was an excellent episode. But how about you? How are you feeling about this one?
I also really like this episode.
Yeah.
I agree. Again, I continue week by week at this point to enjoy this show more.
Yeah.
And that's a good feeling.
Totally.
After my initial very cold response to the show,
Yes.
I have been warming up week by week, and this week is no different. I really liked episode 6.
Yeah.
In fact, there were a couple of creative choices in episode 6 that I was a huge fan of, and I was like, the rest of the show should be doing way more of this.
Yeah.
So I want to call
Tell us
out these
about
things. One, opening on Sanctuary Moon. Open every episode on Sanctuary Moon. Do it.
Yeah. Give us a whole episode of just Sanctuary Moon. If that's the final episode of this season, you will
just
have
a bottled
nailed it.
episode of just
100%.
Sanctuary Moon.
Yeah.
But I don't even, I only partially mean that in a joking way.
Yeah.
What I really liked is we opened on a Sanctuary Moon clip that was thematically resonant to what happens in the plot of this episode.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
It is the Sanctuary Moon robot and human connecting and comforting each other.
Yes.
Much like Mensa and Murderbot will do shortly in the Hopper.
Yeah.
So I think that's a strong creative decision. And there's a world in which you could have opened every episode with a Sanctuary Moon clip that thematically kind of reinforces a main emotional arc of an episode to heighten things or to kind of make a more cohesive delivery of an episode. I really liked it. That was a smart decision in this one. Big win there. Speaking of Murderbot and Mensa, the emotional, I actually got quite emotional when they sat down and Murderbot turned on the TV mid panic attack. Because I think that shows a lot about Murderbot actually, and Murderbot's own growth in understanding humans. Because I personally have been in situations where friends or family members are clearly in the middle of an anxiety attack, a panic attack, and honestly, I have like frozen up. I've been like, I don't know what to do.
What do I do? Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah.
Like, do you want a hug? Do you want water? Do you want to sit down? Like,
what do I pat your back? What
do I do?
Thing? Yeah.
Heimlich? I can Heimlich. I learned how to Heimlich in high school.
No.
Okay, no Heimlich. No Heimlich.
What are you doing? Get off me. Yeah.
So I think it's actually quite profound.
Yeah.
A profound growth moment for Murderbot to recognize Mensa's having a panic attack.
Right.
Instead of being cold, distant robot, let me do what they did on Sanctuary Moon and connect. Let me sit down.
Right.
Robots don't need to sit. Why would I sit down? But humans like it when we sit.
Right.
I'll sit down with Mensa.
Right.
Let me turn on a show.
Right.
An episode of the show in particular that is soothing.
Right.
To help Mensa ground herself again.
Right.
I loved this. And in fact, I want more of this.
I agree.
I want more of Murderbot interacting with the crew, these one-on-one scenes with the crew that tells us more about the crew, that tells us more about Murderbot's humanity.
Yeah.
I think this was a very powerful moment that resonates a lot with the themes and ideas in the books as well about Murderbot's humanity and Preservation Ox in particular, treating it more like a person rather than a tool.
Right.
Really lovely moment. And some funny banter back and forth too. In particular, I liked when Mensa was like, this episode of Sanctuary Moon doesn't make sense. Yeah. And Murderbot quickly guts in and was like, it's canon.
It's canon. Yeah, totally.
So funny.
I agree.
Big fan.
Yes.
I liked that a lot. I want more of those emotional moments that give me insight into the characters there. And we got it here.
Yeah,
Big
totally. Fan. And it's clear that Murderbot is really quite self-aware. It has been throughout this season and also in the books, of course. But it makes a remark in that scene as well that they can't both be immobilized by anxiety, and it recognizes this thing about itself, and it can kind of project outwards, and it can kind of take in also from its surroundings to better understand, how the humans around it are feeling. And
it's commands from inside.
Commands from inside. That's right. Feelings are commands from inside. Yeah, that was a great line. And as a bit of contrast to the points you're making there, which I also just kind of structurally appreciate, at the very end, in the final scene, after it's shot Labibi in the head, it makes, and the episode ends on this line, exploding Labibi's head felt good, and we've got, Murderbot also reflecting on how they thought that it had become more like them, and the truth is it is still a sec unit, and it's fundamentally not human. Definitely presents in a number of kind of it certainly has humanity to it, but Murderbot is still, if anything, is not quite as similar to the Preservation Ox team than humanity writ large. If anything, probably more similar to the humans on the Corporation Rim. But this Pres Ox crew in particular being highly pacifist, I don't think we're getting Murderbot to that point.
No, that's a really excellent point.
Yeah,
because I think the books explore this as well, where Preservation Ox crew makes the mistake in the books of treating Murderbot like a person.
Yeah.
Murderbot is not a person. You have to respect what Murderbot is.
Right.
Murderbot is a sec unit.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it doesn't deserve its own rights and autonomy.
Totally.
But it deserves them in its own way, how it wants it.
Yes.
You know, we talk about this a lot in our book club episodes.
Yeah.
Like, this is a big sci-fi idea that comes up all the time, but this like anthropocentric view of the world.
Totally.
Where we look at everything through the assumption of the human lens.
Yes.
Creatures, you know, octopuses are smart because they can do math like us.
Right.
And it's like they might be smart in their own other ways that we don't consider smart.
Right.
But it's not the human version of smart, so we think they're dumb.
Yeah.
And Preservation Ox very much here in the show and very much in the books clearly makes this same mistake.
Totally.
Sec Unit has its own wants and desires and needs.
Yeah.
You know, like it doesn't want to have sex with Labibi. It can't have sex with Labibi.
God, Labibi really wants to. Though.
Back off, Labibi.
Right.
And so I think there's almost like a like a hippy dippy leftist socialist overcorrection here from Preservation Ox to be like, you're one of us. We're a human.
Right.
Without acknowledging you're not a human,
Right.
but we still respect who and what you are.
Right.
And I think the show is introducing that idea
Totally.
in this episode, and I really appreciated that. This episode was a highlight for me.
I agree.
liked it a lot.
I agree. I mean, I'll only plus one your point there because I think there's also an interesting thing happening kind of right now, and we talk about this in other episodes with LLMs and these like chat-based applications.
Yeah.
I will say, having talked to a lot of people about how they use ChatGPT, Claude, these other AIs, there's the same thing that's kind of happened. We're kind of anthropomorphizing this technology.
Yes.
You know, I mean, people are giving, their AIs names and they will say thank you at the end of conversations and we'll start them with please and how are you? And you're fundamentally interacting with, essentially this like complicated, very large equation, but you could print it out technically on paper. Like you could print out the entirety of what ChatGPT is on like a billion pieces of paper, but you wouldn't anthropomorphize that in the way that
still doesn't make a person.
It doesn't make a person, And I think like the same thing is happening here in the show. And what kind of got me was, and to be fair, we love Murderbot, so we're like rooting for this to happen. But when Dr. Mensah kind of ignores, the crew early on in one of the early episodes and kind of runs into Deltfall to rescue Murderbot, if Murderbot didn't have a face, would you run in because your Roomba was, under attack, quote unquote? So there's like, I think there is an interesting thing with Murderbot. I mean, obviously having biological parts, having a human face, that complicates this question dramatically.
Having a spine, but not having a heart.
But not having a heart, having a spine, but not having a penis. Much to Labibi's chagrin.
Yes, exactly.
But it's interesting. I mean, the point you raised was a good one. Though.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of drawn to anthropomorphizing in ways that can help us maybe, but also hurt us.
Yeah. It's very difficult for humanity to not think from a human-centric lens.
Totally.
And that can oftentimes shoot us in the foot. I mean, the crew, speaking of, you're talking about episode 4 with the combat module. And at the end of that episode, the crew almost gets itself killed because Murderbot is like, you need to shut me down. Just shoot me. I'm a robot, man. I'm not going to die. Just shoot me, shut me down, and then go fix me.
Yes.
But the crew is like, you're a person. No, you're fine.
Come with us.
Come with us. We'll heal you up.
Right.
And Murderbot's like, I'm going to kill you.
Seconds away from killing you all.
Yeah, and like there's that disconnect where it's like Preservation Ox is treating Murderbot like a person, and Murderbot is trying to tell them, no, the smartest thing for you to do right now is shoot me and then fix me later.
Right.
I can't like die in the traditional human sense. Unless you like scrap me for parts and erase my memory, I can just be reloaded.
Yes.
And there's a disconnect here
Totally.
And I think by the end of episode 6,
yeah,
there's a bit of a reality bubble burst.
Yes.
Where perhaps
Totally.
Preservation Ox is like,
totally.
Oh, we're not this isn't a human on our crew.
Right.
This is something else.
Right.
Can dispassionately blow up Labibi's face.
Right.
Probably took a little bit of joy in it. I consider it revenge for the kiss,
Yeah, fair enough. Those are equal. Yeah.
Okay, one tiny. I really like this episode.
Yeah.
One tiny
Let's
criticism.
hear it.
This has to do with Labibi.
Yeah.
This actually is a criticism for last week's episode. Also,
Yeah.
I could do without the penis jokes.
Yeah,
like
fair.
Or I'm sorry, the PP jokes.
The PP jokes. Yeah.
It's crude.
Yeah.
It's childish.
Yeah.
I get the show is goofy and it's not the most highbrow humor or
Sure,
whatever.
sure.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But this to me is going even too lowbrow.
Sure.
You know, it's like, I don't know. I rolled my eyes at the Labibi penis jokes and like once fine.
Yeah.
But it just kept going back to Labibi penis jokes.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, I'm over this joke. We need to
Right.
stop repeating it.
Yeah.
That's my one critique.
Yeah.
You know, like, again, the comedy is hit or miss for me. I'm
Yeah.
finding it funnier and funnier as
Right.
I'm warming up to the crew and
Right.
kind of settling into the sitcom vibe of everything. So I'm not so critical of the comedy as I was early on, but it's still hit or miss, and penis jokes
Miss.
are a miss.
Clear L. Yeah.
Are an L.
Yeah.
Jokes about canon, funny.
Great.
I'll laugh at those.
Yeah. Totally.
So that's my one very tiny critique for the show.
Yeah.
I think there's I would love for there to be some recalibration of the comedy, the
Yeah.
balance of levity and stakes,
Yeah.
and the jokey of it
Yeah.
all.
To be fair, Labibi is dead. We've got a headless
Goodbye-
body.
goodbye, Labibi. Goodbye.
So we might get that
No more penis
correction that
jokes.
you're seeking. I
Yeah,
guess,
exactly.
you know.
I'd hope, and in fact, I'm positive we won't get more penis jokes in the final couple of episodes.
Yeah.
All right. That's episode 6 and our brief thoughts on it, folks.
Yeah.
Thank you, as always, for joining us this week to talk about Murderbot. We only have a few more episodes to go.
Say it ain't so.
We're in the home stretch at this
Yeah.
point. We got 7 through 10, and we will be back for the next few Fridays to talk about that. So, folks, we'll see you next week. As always, please join our community. We are big sci-fi lovers and book
yeah.
lovers
Yep.
on this podcast. We have a nerdy little crew over in Discord. It's free to join. Please hop in and say hello. Link in the show notes below. And we'll catch you on the next one.
That's right.